This vicious persecution is a travesty of justice.
Coming up next on Scripps News Live, former President Donald Trump slamming new federal charges against him. We're going to have the very latest as he is set to appear in a Florida courtroom tomorrow. Plus, Russian President Vladimir Putin honoring the country's military force as it marks the Day of Russia. His message and what that means for the ongoing war in Ukraine.
Most times when folks who are trans come out, they're experiencing homeless very young. 16, 17, 18, they're being kicked out.
And addressing a growing problem as more transgender Americans are finding themselves homeless. We're going to take a closer look at the reasons why and the groups looking to help. Scripps News Live begins right now. Hey there, welcome to Scripps News Live. Good to see you on this Monday. I'm Veronica Cruz. It's now 3 p.m. in the east and 12 p.m. out west. We begin this hour with former President Donald Trump, 24 hours away now from making an appearance in a federal courtroom. The former president facing 37 criminal counts for mishandling classified documents after leaving office. Now, those charges range from retaining classified information to obstructing justice. And Trump has denied any wrongdoing, calling this investigation a, quote, witch hunt, and blaming President Biden without basis. Special counsel Jack Smith speaking on Friday, saying that the nation has one set of laws and they apply to everyone. Trump left his New Jersey home today ahead of his appearance in Miami tomorrow, and security in Florida already tightening. Homeland Security agents working with Secret Service and Miami police ahead of the hearing. And according to the Washington Post, federal authorities are keeping a close eye on rallies planned in support of Trump, including one that a Florida chapter of the extremist group the Proud Boys reportedly has been organizing. Miami's police chief speaking earlier about the preparations.
Make no mistake about it, we're taking this event extremely serious. We know that there's a potential of things taking a turn for the worst, but that's not the Miami way, right?
And we have complete coverage for you on this developing story. Scripps News political director Andrew Rafferty is here in Atlanta. He's going to have much more on the reaction to Trump's historic indictment. But we begin in Miami with Scripps News national political correspondent Alex Miller, who is standing by right now. She is live outside of the courthouse. So, Alex, set the scene for us. I know that you've been outside of that courthouse. What are you seeing primarily? What types of security measures are in place ahead of the former president's arrival?
Well, Veronica, it's business as usual right now. The streets surrounding the courthouse are open. People are able to walk right up into the courthouse right now without really any major issues. The Department of Homeland Security is surrounding the area, as is the city of Miami's police department. But other than that, it seems pretty normal today. They just had a briefing, as you heard from the police chief, as well as with the city's mayor. They are really not concerned. They are saying, as you heard from the police chief, the Miami way, which is essentially to let these protesters protest. They say they are not concerned, but they are prepared if something were to happen. They say measures are in place, but they want people to be able to exercise their First Amendment rights. Listen to what the mayor had to say.
We obviously believe in the Constitution and believe that people should have the right to express themselves, but we also believe in law and order. And we know that, and we hope that tomorrow will be peaceful. We encourage people to be peaceful in them demonstrating how they feel. And we're going to have the adequate forces necessary to ensure that.
You know, if you compare this, Veronica, to what we saw in New York City back in April, we had streets open in the days leading up to the arraignment, but on the day of the arraignment, all of the streets were closed. It doesn't seem that that is a definite case scenario here in Miami. They have not decided on street closures. They say they're going to basically be taking it on a case-by-case basis, that they're only going to close them if they feel that it's necessary. The Secret Service obviously playing a very large role here as they still protect the former president. They have not, though, asked for additional security measures. Obviously, Florida being an open carry state, there's a lot of factors here to take in, but for now they want people to be able to come up as close as possible and as safely as possible to be able to protest as the former president arrives here tomorrow.
Alex, what can you tell us about the judge who is expected to preside over Trump's case, Judge Eileen Cannon?
So she is a former federal prosecutor. She was appointed by the former president in 2020. This is something that we have never seen before, obviously having a former president indicted on a federal charge. But not only was she appointed by the former president, which some believe creates a conflict of interest, but she also has already had something to do with this case. When federal agents went to Mar-a-Lago and seized documents, the former president asked for a special master, and she granted that special master, which made sure that the FBI could not review any of the documents. Now, this was eventually thrown out by judges on a higher level than Judge Cannon. They basically said she overstepped her boundaries when deciding to do this. So there is a possibility she could recuse herself, or the Department of Justice could ask her to recuse herself, but they have not done either of that just yet. Obviously, a possibility tomorrow during the hearing that there could be a discussion about this, but she's actually not expected to be the one on the bench tomorrow. It will be a different judge, a magistrate judge, tomorrow before everything gets underway.
And before I let you go, Alex, I wanted to ask you about some new developments that are happening with Trump's attorneys. On Friday, we saw 2 of his top attorneys step down, but now we're hearing that the attorneys who were thinking about being in court with him tomorrow can't represent him. What's behind that?
Yeah, we have really seen this cycle of lawyers rotating on and off the Trump team when it goes to all of his legal troubles over the last year or so. He had these 2 lawyers last week. As soon as that indictment was unsealed, they stepped aside. Then these other 2 lawyers, including Todd Blanche, who was representing him in New York, they stepped up, said they were going to represent him tomorrow. Now that can't happen. They received a letter saying that because they are not admitted to the Florida bar, the Southern District of Florida bar, they cannot represent him unless they jump through a number of legal hoops. So there is a possibility that in the future they might be able to represent him if they do all of the things that is listed on this letter. But as of now, tomorrow, this could not happen before tomorrow. So he's going to have to find somebody to represent him in the courthouse tomorrow. And still just a lot of questions about who is going to represent the former president during this case. And really, as we've seen people cycling in and out off the different cases, whether or not a lawyer who says they're going to sit and take on this case, how long that they are going to be able to represent him, whether they will make it to the trial itself.
Yeah, I believe that they have to petition the court to be admitted pro hoc vice would be most likely the next kind of hurdle that they would have to clear. But tomorrow is his arraignment, so we're going to have to see how it all plays out. Alex Miller reporting from Miami with the very latest developments. Alex, thank you. So the former president striking a defiant tone at Georgia's Republican convention over the weekend, and it marked his first public appearance since the indictment was unsealed. National political correspondent Kevin Shirley has the details.
Defiant. The ridiculous and baseless indictment of me by the Biden administration's weaponized Department of Injustice will go down as among the most horrific abuses of power in the history of our country.
Aggressive.
Deranged Jack Smith. And I watched him yesterday go up and talk. He talked for about 2.5 minutes. He was shaking. He was so scared.
And with friends.
Want to say something? Come on.
Let's get the job done in 24. Let's get President Trump across the line. Let's get him back in the White House for 4 more years.
Former President Donald Trump hit the campaign trail over the weekend for the first time since being federally indicted. Speaking to friendly crowds at the Republican conventions in both Georgia and North Carolina, Trump spent most of his remarks barreling through the 37 charges brought against him for his handling of classified documents after he left the White House. Trump rarely spoke of his Republican challengers, despite his now former Vice President Mike Pence alluding to him in remarks of his own the night prior.
The unprecedented indictment of a former president of the United States. It's not just a sad day, but it's a troubling day for millions of Americans. And it invites a divisiveness in this country that can only be answered with facts.
A Morning Consult poll released last week had the former president the dominant frontrunner, with support from 56% of Republicans. The next closest, Governor DeSantis at 22%. The other candidates in single digits. And a new CBS News poll shows that 76% of Republicans are most concerned about what they perceive to be the weaponization of the Justice Department, as opposed to Trump's actions and the handling of classified documents.
I think Donald Trump is stronger today politically than he was before.
And that was Kevin Cirilli reporting for us there. So America remains divided after the indictment of former President Trump. Some are saying that the former president should have been indicted. Others, including Trump himself, believe that this is all politically motivated. Scripps News political director Andrew Rafferty joins me now live here in Atlanta in the studio. And Andrew, I know that you've been keeping a close eye on the polling. Has this impacted Trump at all?
Yeah, well, Veronica, it's interesting, and you and I have talked about this. This is not the first time we've been through this rodeo with Donald Trump, and it is interesting to kind of compare the numbers to where they were back in April when he was in court in New York to where we're seeing now. But just some numbers that came out over the weekend to give us a sense of just how Americans are reacting to this indictment shows that almost 50%, 48% exactly, feel that the former president should have been charged. And of course, this is something that we see huge partisan divides on, but you see 48%, so it's a little bit less than a majority. 35% and almost a third say should not, and then a not insignificant amount, 17%, just don't know a whole lot yet. So I do think that the American public is paying attention, that they do really understand what is at stake here, and they understand the case as opposed to some sort of more complicated or maybe nebulous ideas that have been legally presented against Donald Trump. This is, he took some documents that had some pretty important stuff in it, it seems, and didn't give it back when the government wanted it back. That Americans are able to digest that, maybe in a way that they haven't been able to really comprehend some of the other legal proceedings that have surrounded the former president.
Well, you bring up a good point, Andrew. In looking at that poll, it showed you that 48% of Americans do believe that he should have been charged. I think the question here is, what do Americans think of the charges? How serious do they feel these charges are? Has it shaken up public perception of Trump at all?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, and I did mention that partisan split, and we'll get into that in a second, but most Americans do feel like that this is a threat to our national security. And here's what Republicans themselves, however, are saying, that they are very much sticking with Trump, and I don't think that's totally surprising to anyone. 61%, this is among Republicans, a CBS News poll just out over the weekend, say that this will not change their perception of Trump. And then about 1/5 are say it depends on, you know, some of the more facts of the case, and then you see some others for the better and then for the worse. A very small percentage of Republicans, mind you. And I think that brings up another interesting point, because if you're a Republican running against Donald Trump right now, generally you think if your opponent gets indicted, that's normally a good thing, you know, if he has legal challenges. Here, I think it's going to be really, really interesting, because Donald Trump's going to take up so much of the air, Veronica, so much oxygen.
Well, he already has.
Yeah, and if you're Mike Pence, if you're, you know, Ron DeSantis, how do you even get in the headlines right now? How do you make sure that your message is reaching Republican voters? I think that's going to be a big challenge for them. It's going to be interesting to see how they navigate it over the next couple of months.
Yeah, and I think so far we've seen Pence, for example, or even DeSantis, kind of going to the mat and speaking negatively, you know, about Trump. And we obviously know how Republicans feel right now, and that poll shows us that, what, 61% of Republicans polled, well, they don't necessarily find that these charges are all that serious, and it's not going to really change their view of Trump. So what are Democrats saying, though, Andrew? What has the president been saying, and what have top Democrats on the Hill said?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I think Democrats, especially the White House, they have to play this pretty carefully, because what has Joe Biden and his administration always said? This is Merrick Garland's investigation. This is the Department of Justice. This is not something that they've been involved with. At the same time, you want your Democratic allies on Capitol Hill making a big deal out of this, because they feel like that this was a pretty egregious violation. Now, it also is important to remember Joe Biden had documents himself that he had to turn over. He's still being investigated, although every indication so far is that he has complied. Almost opposite kind of reaction that we saw from Donald Trump in that indictment, where he's alleged to have gone out of his way to hide those documents. So it's not something that this White House is necessarily comfortable going out on a limb for, but they're really hopeful that their allies in Congress can kind of hammer home the point, because they feel like this is something that is serious and will resonate with the American public.
I think you definitely raise a good point when you say that, look, it wasn't just former President Trump. Right. It was also the current president. It was also the former vice president. Yeah. You know, they all had classified documents, which, to your point, have been returned to the National Archives.
Yeah, and that seems to be the dividing line. The one through line is that the individuals who found them, gave them back, were generally seem to be on better footing. We know Mike Pence was cleared. Donald Trump alleged to have done pretty much the opposite of that.
All right, Andrew Rafferty, good to see you in the studio. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Our coverage of this developing story continues in the next half hour. National correspondent Chris Stewart is in Florida with a look outside the former president's Mar-a-Lago estate and the supporters that have been gathering there. It's coming up at 3:30 only on Scripps News Live. All right, after a quick break on Scripps News Live, it's been 7 years since a deadly mass shooting at a Florida LGBTQ nightclub. How they're honoring the victims right now and throughout the month. But first, NATO's leader in Washington for a meeting with President Biden. What they're expected to discuss as the war in Ukraine continues.
Continuing coverage on the indictment of a president.
The indictment is very well laid out and very damning.
As former President Donald Trump prepares to appear in a Miami federal courtroom tomorrow, what are the potential impacts on national security? Tonight at 8/7 Central on Scripps News Tonight.
Do you spend hours maintaining your gutters? Save that time with LeafGuard's maintenance-free system. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS. Mesh filters sit on top of your gutters, building up debris and eventually clogging. Then they need to be cleaned too. Honestly, your home should have been built with LeafGuard gutters. LeafGuard's wraparound hood deflects debris and keeps water away from your home. The one-piece seamless system is strong, 20% thicker than average and built to last. Plus, LeafGuard is guaranteed to never clog for as long as you own your home. Right now, get a complete LeafGuard system for only $99 down, $99 a month, and $99 installation. You'll also receive a $100 Visa gift card with a free gutter inspection and in-home estimate. Damage from clogged gutters can cost you thousands. Never worry about clogged gutters again. Don't wait, you've still got time. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS today. That's 1-833-2-GUTTERS.
I had to replace my engine. The bill would have been over $4,000, but my Endurance Auto Protection Plan covered it all.
A broken AC unit costs over $1,800, a transmission over $3,000, and an engine over $4,000. Breakdowns used to mean paying thousands out of pocket, until now. Go to EnduranceWarranty.com or call Endurance today and stop paying for expensive auto repairs. Call 877-204-1467 or visit EnduranceWarranty.com for a free quote.
How does Klein Inspector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein Inspector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein Inspector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein Inspector.
Raising children means you need support. Kiziks are the truly hands-free shoe that can handle anything mothering throws at you.
Where did you get that chainsaw?
Amazon? Oh, it's time to upgrade to the original hands-free smart shoe. Free shipping, free returns, free the whales. You can get your own Kiziks today.
Sunday night on In Real Life.
Those for the baby?
Yeah. Scripps News journalists take you off the grid.
We were just a bunch of kids with a camera.
Stunt staff become more specialized.
And to the heart of the story.
When the pandemic hit, the American dream kind of changed.
There were a lot of warning signs. They just didn't care.
In Real Life, Sunday at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News.
President Biden set to meet with NATO's outgoing Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg tomorrow. The two were originally set to talk today, but had to postpone the meeting as the president undergoes a root canal. Stoltenberg has led NATO since 2014, but said earlier this year he's going to move on when his term expires in September. And the lobbying to replace him is intensifying. Now, the two leaders are expected to discuss a range of topics, including ongoing support for Ukraine in its war with Russia. Ukraine's military is reporting key gains against Russia on the ground, as the country's president has given his clearest signal yet that its long-awaited counteroffensive is now underway. Ukraine's military is saying that troops have retaken another southeastern village from Russian forces, and the villages are part of an area where the Russian front lines extend into Ukrainian territory. Now, Russia has not confirmed a retreat from these villages. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is saying this weekend that defensive actions were taking place without specifying whether this was an all-out counteroffensive. Russian President Vladimir Putin saying that the counteroffensive started and Ukraine was taking significant losses. Now, the battlefield reports can't be independently verified. And all of this is coming as Russian President Putin has been marking the Day of Russia. It's a national holiday, and it honors the 1990 declaration of sovereignty by Russia when it was still part of the Soviet Union. Putin honoring the country's soldiers during the ceremony today, calling them participants in the special military operation, the official Russian term for its invasion of Ukraine. Elizabeth Wood is a professor of Russian history at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and she joins us now to break down the significance of the day. Professor, thank you so much for being here.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Veronica. So June 12th, 1990 is when that Independence Day dates from. But if you ask most Russians, they have no idea what holiday it is. For them, it's a day off. They don't know what it is. But for our purposes, in the midst of this war, it's especially important because it was one of the most important signals of the breakup of the USSR and the formation of an independent Russia, which by definition means a independent Ukraine. So if you think about it, Russia, by declaring its own sovereignty, the sovereignty of its laws vis-a-vis the national Soviet laws, was fomenting and permitting the declarations of independence by other republics, which soon became nations just 1 year later. So in a way, the Russians on this holiday are marking the moment when they helped Ukraine become quite an independent country.
What I think is really significant here, Professor, is that you're saying that Russians don't even know that they're celebrating the day. How else does it differ from our Independence Day here in the United States? I'm sure there are many differences.
Well, the U.S. holiday is obviously a key part of our mythology. From 1776, we all know the dates, we know the events, we have a set narrative. This is a younger country in a way, if you think about it. Russia claims to be the imperial Russia that goes back centuries, and they claim to be older than Ukraine. But in fact, they are exactly the same age as Ukraine as post-Soviet countries. So it's 31 years old as a celebration, and it doesn't have a lot of meaning. Putin doesn't make particular speeches, as you alluded and showed the footage. He handed out some awards to heroes of labor, including one military chief from the special military operation, and one woman who has facilitated taking the orphans from Ukraine and claiming that they need to be raised by Russian families. So it's kind of a very mixed thing. The other thing that's really interesting that most Americans don't know is that when he says special military operation, that's a phrase that was used in the war with Chechnya, which is a constituent part of Russia, the Russian Federation. It's a federation of smaller units, including Chechnya. At the time, they said it wasn't a war because a war could be only with a foreign country. By calling this a special military operation and not a war, Putin has, from the beginning, been saying that Ukraine is not an independent country. And he said it, of course, in many, many ways. But the 1990 holiday that we're celebrating today, they're celebrating June 12th, is, of course, a statement of Russian independence from the USSR and therefore Ukrainian independence from the USSR. So it's quite different from our July 4th. People get the day off, they have some celebrations, they have some holiday, but it doesn't have a lot of significance. And in fact, they're rather ambivalent about it, I think, because many of them would rather that the Soviet Union had not broken up. They liked being an even bigger country.
And I want to go a bit deeper, on that point specifically, because Putin discussed Russian patriotism for National Day. Of course, he is referring to all of this, as you said, as a special military operation. What is the sentiment like in Russia right now, given the war in Ukraine? I mean, are there Russians that are supportive of the war? I would love to get inside the minds of Russians as they celebrate this holiday.
This is one of the vexed questions that scholars from outside the country really have a hard time figuring out. First of all, for actually quite a while now, it's been very hard for pollsters even to get Russians to answer the phone and answer questions. One pollster told me that it would take him 18 or 19 calls to get one answer. People are too chary of trying to say how they feel about the war. The most recent poll that I saw made a big distinction between supporting what our government does, how's the phrasing went, versus fear of what the war's consequences might be. So it's clear that Russians are becoming more and more afraid of how they might themselves suffer for this war. And clearly the other very interesting factor is the sheer number of Russians who have gotten private servers, VPNs, to get their news. So especially in the cities, they are able to find out what's going on. And it's Ukraine, it's not so far away that they don't themselves have relatives and friends from there. The scary part is the families that have become divided by this, who one family member is in Ukraine, one member in Russia, and they won't speak to each other about the war because obviously anyone in Ukraine is suffering terribly and terribly worried about the integrity of the country, while Russians, it's just, some conflict outside the border. So it's very sad to see that the Russians have not been able to find a way to protest, to make it clear what's going on. We had an event at MIT where I teach, and we had a Russian and a Ukrainian speaker. And at one point, the Russian speaker, who's very critical of Russia, has been for years, said, well, I guess this is what happens when we lose. They've been unable to unseat Putin. And now the opposition, key members of the opposition are in jail. Many journalists and opposition thinkers have fled. So it's a very difficult situation.
Yeah, it sure is. Professor Elizabeth Wood is professor of Russian history at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Thank you so much for your time today. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, former President Donald Trump preparing to appear in federal court this week, where he's still finding support during his legal battles. Plus,
I'm Chris Conti here in Atlanta, and a recent rise in anti-transgender legislation nationwide is creating a spike in homelessness among the transgender community. You're already seeing the impacts of the anti-trans legislation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're seeing people scared.
We show you efforts underway to help transgender people facing homelessness and take a closer look at why some say many transgender people face discrimination when trying to find a place to live.
This year, Americans will spend $41 billion on auto repairs.
That's right, billions with a B. Why is that number so high? Because cars break down. Your vehicle is going to end up in a shop like this too, and if it's no longer under warranty, you're the one who has to pay the bill, and it could cost you thousands of dollars. That is, unless you call CarShield. With a plan through CarShield, administrators will pay for those costly repairs directly to the mechanic of your choice, including dealerships. That means you get protection on major parts and systems like the engine, transmission, electrical systems, and more. Plus, 24/7 emergency services for flat or damaged tires, lockouts, dead batteries, and towing at no additional cost. And there are even rental car options to keep you on the road.
I've been a mechanic for 35 plus years now. I've seen thousands of repairs over the years. My happiest customers are the ones that come in who have some kind of auto protection policy that's going to cover the repair that they wasn't expecting anyway. I feel great about recommending CarShield to everybody I see.
CarShield has a rich history of dependability, reliability, and success, and has been featured on leading networks like ABC, CNN, Fox News, and more. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company.
My mom told me to call CarShield, and I saved $5,000. You should always listen to your mom.
As soon as my car broke down, CarShield jumped into action, and I had my car back within days.
I've been with CarShield for close to 7 years. I have 3 vehicles covered, and I saved close to $9,000.
I called CarShield and saved over $5,000.
Yes, CarShield is a good value. Every plan through CarShield comes with a price lock guarantee, which means no matter how many repairs you need, the price you pay today will never change for as long as you cover your car.
Call now and save money with your price lock guarantee. It's not a matter of if your car will break down, but when. Call CarShield now before it's too late. Call 800-287-5264. 800-287-5264. 800-287-5264.
Keep your dog safe anywhere with the world's smartest fence.
Halo Collar is a virtual fence inside a collar. Easily create multiple fences in the app, no installation required. Teach them to keep away from danger and come back to safety. Safely give your dog a life off leash. Wherever you go, it's a whole new world for you and your dog. Learn more at halocollar.com.
We need some help.
I know. I'm going to CashNetUSA.com. And if approved, we can have the money in our account as soon as the same business day.
Go to CashNetUSA.com to apply for the money you need.
Surprise Dad this Father's Day with something new. Fracture turns your images into more than a picture. Your photos are custom printed directly on glass to achieve brilliant color and clarity. Visit tryfracture.com and save up to 30% off.
Hey there, welcome back to Scripps News Live. Great to see you on this Monday. I'm Veronica Cruz. It's half past the hour now. Here are some of the other stories that we're keeping an eye on for you. Silvio Berlusconi, the three-time Prime Minister of Italy, has died. The 86-year-old had been battling leukemia, and he rose to prominence as a media mogul, starting several Italian TV networks, and that made him a billionaire. His first stint as Prime Minister in 1994 only lasted a year. He was reelected in 2 separate terms between 2000 and 2011. His time in office, though, was marked by corruption and sex scandals. A state funeral is planned for Wednesday in Milan. More than 13,000 people are being moved to safety as lava continues to spew from the Mayon volcano in the Philippines. The volcano is surrounded by mostly low-income rural farming communities, which are now under mandatory evacuation orders. Experts are saying that the lava slowly flowing down now is part of what is being called an effusive eruption. The volcano currently in a state of high unrest, and a dangerous eruption is possible over the next few days or even weeks. JP Morgan settling a class action lawsuit after reaching a deal with victims of Jeffrey Epstein. The disgraced financier was a client of JP Morgan's. Sexual abuse victims accused the bank of enabling sex trafficking. Epstein was arrested in 2019 on trafficking charges, and he died in prison soon after. The settlement amount has not been disclosed and still has to be approved by a judge. All right, let's get back now to our continuing coverage of former President Donald Trump facing another unprecedented indictment, this time at the federal level. Trump spent the weekend on the campaign trail speaking at 2 Republican state conventions in Georgia and North Carolina, and he called the 37-count federal indictment against him ridiculous. He also called special counsel Jack Smith, quote, deranged. Now, the former president is seeing plenty of support both in Washington and in communities across the nation. Scripps News correspondent Chris Stewart is outside of Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate, where many of the former president's most staunch supporters have been gathering since news of the indictment last week.
Mar-a-Lago is a place where many of the former president's most diehard supporters gather, whether he is in town or not. Within the first 5 pages of this 49-page indictment, special counsel Jack Smith lays out that Mar-a-Lago is not just a private residence for the former president, but this is a social club that held more than 150 events between the time the former president left office in January 2021 and August of 2022. Tens of thousands of people without security clearance coming through this property during that time. And that's what makes these images so concerning. When you see the boxes on the stage in a ballroom or stacked high inside of a bathroom. Over the weekend, supporters of the former president, allies of the former president standing by his side. But former Attorney General Bill Barr had this to say about the indictment.
Even half what Andy McCarthy said, which is if even half of it is true, then he's toast. I mean, it's a very detailed indictment, and it's very, very damning.
The former president responded to that statement by his former Attorney General with a post on Truth Social, his social media platform, calling Barr a disgruntled former employee. Now, the former president is expected to travel to Florida today. He'll be staying in Doral at his golf course there west of Miami tonight and working with his attorneys in preparation of this Tuesday court appearance. As far as here at Mar-a-Lago, we are expecting supporters over the next couple of days to gather for the former president. This was the scene over the weekend, about 50 of his supporters arriving here outside of Mar-a-Lago. It will be interesting to see what the scene will not just look like here over the next couple of days, but of course in Miami ahead of that Tuesday court appearance. Chris Stewart, Scripps News, Palm Beach, Florida.
Now, supporters are also expected to gather on Tuesday night, hours after the former president's appearance in a federal courtroom. He's going to be hosting a fundraiser for his 2024 campaign at his New Jersey golf club. The former president is expected to address the crowd before that fundraiser begins. And we'd like to remind you right here to follow us at Scripps News on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok for all the latest developments on the story. You can also catch up on scrippsnews.com. Today marks 7 years since the deadly shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. 49 people were killed in the LGBTQ nightclub, 53 others wounded. And at the time, it was the deadliest shooting in modern U.S. history. The Orlando Metro will host remembrance ceremonies throughout the day and the rest of the month. And flags are also flying at half-staff in honor of the victims. Colorado Springs, in the meantime, remains resilient 7 months after the deadly shooting at Club Q. 5 people who were killed in the nightclub in November are being honored during the city's Pride Parade, which took place on Sunday. The veteran who helped stop the shooter was named the Grand Marshal and led the parade.
It's just friendly and loving, you know, and that's what's really cool is Pride isn't just about a single community, it's about everybody. I've never done anything like this, so for me it was extra special, especially from a community that has welcomed me with open arms. It's like a start over, right? Like hopefully we can move forward and get past tragedy and have some joy.
Victims' families say the parade was another step in their healing journey. And as part of our Pride Month coverage here on Scripps News, we've been sharing stories of celebration in the LGBTQ+ community, as well as shining a light on the issues they face right now. As a number of states move to restrict the rights of the transgender community, a growing number of transgender people are homeless. National correspondent Chris spoke with one group dedicated to addressing the needs.
According to the National Center for Transgender Equality, 1 in 5 transgender people have experienced homelessness in their lives. Family rejection and discrimination play a large part in why that is. But I'm going to show you some efforts underway to help this often overlooked community. Forgotten and overlooked, ignored and passed right by. For many homeless people in this country, choice was taken out of the equation long ago, especially in the trans community.
Most times when folks who are trans come out, they're experiencing homeless very young. 16, 17, 18, they're being kicked out.
That is Mary Wilson. I sat down with her recently in Atlanta, a city that has no shortage of homeless issues. Wilson is the program director for a group called the Trans Housing Coalition. Their goal is to help transgender people who have found themselves homeless. 1 in 5 transgender people experience homelessness.
Yes.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. We get referrals constantly.
According to translegislation.com, a record 556 anti-trans bills have been introduced in 2023 across 49 states, and 27 national anti-trans bills have been brought before Congress. The impacts on homelessness, advocates say, have been immediate. A lot of the anti-trans legislation going on right now, has it made things worse? Has it created more homelessness or more uncertainty within the community?
Yeah, so what's happening now is we're seeing an influx of emails of people saying, like, I'm fleeing Florida, I'm fleeing this place. There are people now, what's happening and that we're seeing a huge thing is that people are coming to Atlanta to be homeless to get more care.
You're already seeing the impacts of the anti-trans legislation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so, and you're seeing people scared.
There is no national group dedicated to helping homeless trans people, but dozens exist across the U.S. There's more complexities.
Yeah, I think it's the whole gender and sex thing that people don't understand. I think it's harder. What they face is just very, very, very unique. I'm not trans, but even being in here, being part of the community, I thought I kind of knew, but being in it, it's very, very, very hard.
The Trans Housing Coalition helps with emergency hotel stays. They even facilitate training with landlords to minimize discrimination that many advocates say exists when someone who is trans tries to secure rental housing. And in the middle of Pride Month, advocates say attention to the issue is key in getting people help. Does it feel like as much of a celebration maybe as years past? Does it feel a little more like a fight, or is it the same or different?
It feels like both. You know what I mean? It feels like both. It does feel like a fight with everything that's happened. It's very disappointing and it's very stressful. But it also feels like, you know, we're here. This is who we are.
At the end of the day, their goal is to make sure the homeless trans community doesn't feel forgotten or ignored. Wisconsin, Scripps News, Atlanta.
All right, Chris, thank you for that. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, a major highway in Pennsylvania collapsing over the weekend. We're going to be speaking live with an expert about the impact that you might be seeing on the supply chain and how long it might take to fix. And a quick reminder right here, we'd like to hear from you. You can always give us a call on our Scripps News viewer hotline toll free. That number's on your screen right now, 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. You can share your comments and your story ideas.
Attention anyone new to Medicare, moving or losing coverage for any reason. You may qualify for a Medicare special enrollment period. Call now to see if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Part C plan with extra benefits. Did you know Medicare Part C is commonly called Medicare Advantage? If you qualify for an SEP, call now because there may be plans with extra benefits available that are not covered under Medicare Parts A and B. There are people who qualify for special enrollment but don't have a Medicare Advantage Part C plan, which covers everything at Part A and Part B, plus extra benefits not covered by original Medicare. Here's the good news. If you qualify, you can call now. We will check to see if there is a Medicare Advantage Part C plan available in your area with additional benefits. Call now to speak with a licensed insurance agent to see if you are eligible to enroll in a 2023 Medicare Advantage plan with extra benefits like dental coverage or savings on prescription medications. You don't get these extra benefits automatically, so call now for your free 2023 no-obligation Medicare benefits review. Just call 800-543-6120. 800-543-6120. Attention anyone new to Medicare, moving or losing coverage for any reason. You may qualify for a Medicare special enrollment period. Call now to see if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Part C plan with extra benefits. Did you know Medicare Part C is commonly called Medicare Advantage? If you qualify for an SEP, call now because there may be plans with extra benefits available that are not covered under Medicare Parts A and B. There are people who qualify for special enrollment but don't have a Medicare Advantage Part C plan, which covers everything at Part A and Part B, plus extra benefits not covered by original Medicare. Here's the good news. If you qualify, you can call now. We will check to see if there is a Medicare Advantage Part C plan available in your area with additional benefits. Call now to speak with a licensed insurance agent to see if you are eligible to enroll in a 2023 Medicare Advantage plan with extra benefits like dental coverage or savings on prescription medications. You don't get these extra benefits automatically, so call now for your free 2023 no-obligation Medicare benefits review. Just call 800-543-6120. 800-543-6120.
There's a lot to watch on TV these days. Problem is, most streaming options are incredibly pricey, and you'll end up paying for the local channels you can get for free. Luckily, there's a solution. Sling is only $40 a month, and you get awesome stuff like sports, news, and today's hottest TV for half of what the other guys cost. If you already get free locals with an antenna, now you can easily add the channels you're missing with Sling. It's the TV you love for a price you'll love. Visit sling.com/antenna to learn more.
There shouldn't be a stigma around talking about mental health or taking medication for your anxiety if that's what you need to feel better. And that's something I know firsthand. That's why I trust Hers. They help women access quality mental health care 100% online. Get started today at forhers.com.
Shopping for Father's Day is hard.
Actually, it's easy.
You never know what to get him.
Just give me steak.
It has to be perfect.
Yep. Dads want steak.
Right now, Omaha Steaks is offering Dad's favorite gift package that includes 4 of our exquisite bacon-wrapped filet mignons, 4 air-chilled boneless chicken breasts, boneless pork chops, jumbo Frank's dessert, and more. All for just $99.99. Save 61%. Order today at omahasteaks.com/TV and you'll get 8 burgers free.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
There's a better way to begin your mornings.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Morning Rush.
On the stories that will shape each day.
There's a new study that might make you feel a little bit better.
So you can get on with yours. Morning Rush. Weekday mornings starting at 7, 6 Central. Only on Scripps News.
Back to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Cruz. A partial collapse of Interstate 95 in Philadelphia will cause months of detours and delays. That section of the highway is closed right now in both directions in northern Philadelphia, and crews have been assessing the damage from a tanker fire that caused 4 northbound lanes to crumble early Sunday morning. Now, the good news, there are no reports of death or injuries, but state officials are saying that these repairs are going to take some time. They're asking drivers and employers to be flexible.
We are all going to need some extra patience in the coming days. Please work with us as we work through this, especially tomorrow morning. We ask employers to be as flexible as they can with their workforces. It's going to take longer than normal to get to work.
Scripps News national correspondent Morris Sirianni has more now on the massive rebuilding effort still to come.
Drivers along a heavily traveled portion of Interstate 95 in Philadelphia Sunday morning in awe.
How about it, 95?
After officials with the Philadelphia Fire Department say a gasoline tanker truck caught fire, shutting down the interstate in both directions. Daniel Gallagher, capturing this cell phone video, said he could hear asphalt sizzling. Flames raging out of control as crews rushed to put them out. Heat from the fire eventually causing this elevated section of Interstate to collapse.
The southbound side is compromised by heavy fire. Looked like we had a lot of heat and heavy fire underneath the underpass, okay?
Fire crews working quickly to respond to both the tanker fire and the collapse say there were no immediate injuries reported. As for repairs, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro said he plans to issue a disaster declaration today to ask for federal funds to begin that process.
We expect that to take some number of months. I plan to issue a disaster declaration, allowing the Commonwealth to immediately draw down federal funds and move quickly to repair and reconstruct this roadway.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said he's working to expedite those funds. In the meantime, officials with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation warned people to plan ahead for their Monday commute.
At this time, we are advising residents to please avoid the area and plan for alternative routes of travel.
Travelers passing through should also expect delays. Officials with the National Transportation Safety Board say they're actively working with the Pennsylvania State Police to conduct a thorough investigation. Mara Sirianni, Scripps News.
All right, to go ahead and talk big picture here and explore the impact of this collapse on the nation's supply chain, we're joined now live by John Kingston. He is the editor-at-large at FreightWaves, which is a global supply chain market intelligence agency. John, thanks so much for stopping by today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. I did want to correct you on one thing. Just in the last hour or two, they have actually found human remains in the truck that they assume is the driver. So there actually is a death, unfortunately, connected to this.
Yeah, okay. Yes, thank you so much for the update, and that is quite unfortunate. We want to talk about the latest in terms of the recovery effort and also what they're going to be doing in terms of rebuilding, because this is a busy stretch of highway that is now out of commission. We've been looking at the pictures, and there's an entire slice of that freeway that is just it's evaporated. It's missing. I want to go ahead and play you some sound from Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. John, take a listen to what he's had to say so far about the impact here.
This is not just about commutes. This is also about supply chains. About 150,000 vehicles a day, and a good percentage of that is trucking. So obviously for both vehicle passenger traffic and for goods movement supply chains, this is going to be a major disruption in that region.
So Buttigieg is calling this a major disruption. What are we expecting as far as disruptions to the supply chain, and for how long?
Well, we're trying to get a handle on that. First of all, I would say that the number is 14,000 to 16,000 trucks a day. I've seen that estimate of what trucks go on there. If there's any good news, is that most of the major truckload traffic between sort of north and south of Philadelphia does not actually go on this. You know, there's a quirky aspect of 95 that it really doesn't go continuously. It sort of ends. And that's why if you're traveling, let's say from New England to North Carolina on 95, at a certain point on the New Jersey Turnpike, you will see these signs that say 295, not the number 20, T0. So most of the truck traffic that goes north to south along the eastern seaboard that's not going to be delivered or picked up in this area do not actually go on this. They're on the New Jersey Turnpike, or they're on a parallel highway for most of it called 295. That's not to say that this isn't significant. This still is, as I said, 14,000, 16,000 trucks. I think you'd find a lot of them will be localized, therefore deliveries in and out of the Philadelphia area. Unless, the one thing I don't know is whether some truck drivers who are going north to south, from the Carolinas to Massachusetts, whether they find this route better than going over to the Turnpike, because the Turnpike, the New Jersey Turnpike, is tolled, and of course this area was not. They're going to have to go head east to either 295 or the Turnpike to go on this. So it'll have that ripple effect. I do think that deliveries within the Philadelphia area might very well be affected by this. The state has recommended an alternate route. That's their recommendation, but of course, people are creative and Waze might tell them other ways to go. So there's no doubt that this is going to be this is not going to be fun for a while. I saw a lot of online chatter today about a similar incident in Atlanta a couple of years ago. I remember that one. There was a homeless person who started a fire, and it too led to, I don't know if it was a full collapse, but it certainly led to the, a weakening of the structure of a highway, either 85 or 75 down there. And I think the number I saw was 43 days to fix it. So it may be possible that Governor Shapiro kind of, got everybody ready for months and months. I think that was a term he used till this gets fixed, and maybe it'll be less than that. But I think you're going to hear a lot about Atlanta and how well Philadelphia does relative to how quickly they fixed Atlanta. I say that not as an engineer. For all I know, the issues could be very different here.
I want to go ahead and ask you more about the 14,000 to 16,000 trucks that travel through this area, because now you're saying that they actually have been taking a different route, the turnpike, which unfortunately there is a toll that truckers would have to pay. Regardless, it does seem as though the biggest impacts to the economy would be impacts to the local economy versus the national economy. Is that something that you're saying here?
Well, yeah, I don't want to make too definitive a statement because everybody I've spoken to today was very cautious about what they were saying. But the fact is, the Port of Philadelphia, it's not like, let's say, losing the Port of Savannah or the Port of Long Beach or Los Angeles or something like this. The Port of Philadelphia is an important port. It is not a massively important port like some of those others I mentioned. So if now then the fact is the port is pretty far south from where this happened. So you can imagine, that imports that come into Philadelphia still will be able to get into a truck and get on the road. But if they were, the key route that I'm concerned about, it would be going from Philadelphia up to the Allentown area. And why do I care about Allentown? Because Allentown has become a major logistics center with massive amount of warehouse space because it's so well situated. It's got 95 to the east. It's got 81 to the west. It's got the Pennsylvania Turnpike as well as the New Jersey Turnpike. It's a perfect area for a big logistics center. So cargo that might have come into Philadelphia and then gone up to Allentown, that's where I think you'll see the biggest supply impact. But, then maybe it can come into Newark, the Port of Newark, and get trucked out to Allentown for, 2 months, 3 months, whatever. So, yeah, there'll be some impacts, but this is not the country's biggest port that are hit here. So that's somewhat comforting.
Yeah, a little bit of good news there. Still 160,000 vehicles travel through this corridor every single day. So it's going to be a headache for a lot of people who live there. John Kingston is an editor at Freightways. John, thank you so much for your time today. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, looking good is definitely a big part of feeling good. And that's why these beauty professionals donated their time and their skills to foster children in need. We're going to take you inside one very special fashion show after a quick break.
Do you spend hours maintaining your gutters? Save that time with LeafGuard's maintenance-free system. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS. Mesh filters sit on top of your gutters, building up debris and eventually clogging. Then they need to be cleaned too. Honestly, your home should have been built with LeafGuard gutters. LeafGuard's wraparound hood deflects debris and keeps water away from your home. The one-piece seamless system is strong, 20% thicker than average and built to last. Plus, LeafGuard is guaranteed to never clog for as long as you own your home. Right now, get a complete LeafGuard system for only $99 down, $99 a month, and $99 installation. You'll also receive a $100 Visa gift card with a free gutter inspection and in-home estimate. Damage from clogged gutters can cost you thousands. Never worry about clogged gutters again. Don't wait, you've still got time. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS today. That's 1-833-2-GUTTERS.
If you're living with diabetes, this is the sound that could change your life.
Great news for people living with diabetes. Now you can wear a continuous glucose monitor and eliminate routine finger sticks. The days of repeated, painful finger sticks are over.
Call 800-719-8907.
If you use insulin daily to manage your condition, a continuous glucose monitor could help you control your diabetes and reduce or eliminate those painful finger sticks. If you have Medicare or private insurance, US Med can deliver a CGM system right to your door. And if you qualify, there may be little or no cost to you. Shipping is free and will even bill your insurer directly. Call now to get your continuous glucose monitoring system so you can take control of your diabetes and get back to enjoying life.
Call 800-719-8907. That's 800-719-8907.
Are you or a loved one between the ages of 50 to 80 years old? If you are younger than 80 years old, do you receive Social Security, disability, or Medicare? If you answered yes, you may qualify for $30,000 in funeral insurance for only pennies a day. The average funeral costs around $11,000, and Social Security only pays $255, leaving your loved ones to pay the balance. Call now to see if you qualify for $30,000 in funeral expense coverage from Senior Legacy Life. Your rate will never increase. Your benefits will never decrease, and there is no medical exam, even if you have a pre-existing disease or illness. Don't be a financial burden to your family. Lock in your rate by completing an application over the phone right now. Will you qualify for funeral insurance up to $30,000 for only pennies a day? Find out by calling Senior Legacy Life.
Call 1-800-300-5808 to speak with a licensed insurance agent. That's 1-800-300-5808.
Kansas City braiders, barbers, and beauticians showed up to donate their time on Sunday. They were participating in the Walker Foundation's Heritage Day. It was a hair and fashion show. More than 100 kids from Kansas City area foster and group homes got a new do. One of the foundation's co-founders started the hair care mission after her mother battled alopecia, and now it's expanded to providing other services as well.
I was adopted, so my mom was 67 when I was a child. So a lot of the hair care services that they're receiving was something I would have loved to have received for myself, and I wasn't able to. So now that I'm able to give that back, like, it's a no-brainer for me.
After the styling sessions were over, the kids showed off their looks at that fashion show. So cute. The Walker Foundation says they are going to plan a back-to-school event, and that's going to happen next. So things have ground to a standstill at a normally busy port on the West Coast. Our Dell Walters has details on the labor dispute that could interrupt our supply chain. That's straight ahead in the next hour. I'm Veronica Cruz. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. The news continues right here on Scripps News Live. Don't go too far.